Hi, welcome to Issues and Insights. I'm your host, Melanie Parker. I have with me today Mark Absher, County Engineer for Hardin County, Kentucky.
Yep.
Welcome, Mark. I'm glad you had time to come and chat with me today. I know you're a very busy man.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. How long have you been our senior county engineer?
I started here on the 24th of March, so
Wow. So are you
fairly
new to the community as well?
actually we moved into the E-Town area in December, mid-December, bought a house over near the airport. And
How do you like it so far?
Oh, we love the town.
Good.
Absolutely
Good.
love
I set
the
you up
town.
on that one.
Yeah.
Good. Where are you coming from?
Lexington.
Okay.
We lived there, and I worked
Yeah.
at Frankfurt for a while.
So this is downsizing just the area a little bit for you, right?
Yeah, we moved here to be closer to family. My mom's getting older, so that was our
Yeah.
main push. is
Circle
to
of
move
life.
here.
We're at that age,
That's
aren't
right.
we?
That's
Certainly.
right.
So role of a county engineer. I am intrigued because talk to me like I'm 5. I know nothing. I'm
Okay.
very interested.
Well, the list of stuff that I take on is pretty long,
Mm-hmm.
and it goes anywhere from traffic to stormwater to complaints and things like that.
That's
but
a lot.
yeah,
So I'm assuming you're not a one-man show. Do you have a team?
actually, I've got one guy that works with me, and that's Nick, and he
Okay.
does an amazing job on GIS information, and he goes out with me on different runs and stuff.
Okay.
But it's
a
me.
lot for the whole county.
Yeah, but
That's shocking.
yeah, and we've got additional people up there on staff that do
Mm-hmm.
different things that they do and stuff. And then the road crew here is amazing. They do
Truly.
a lot of stuff
And
that I
bless
used to
their
have to
hearts.
do.
I know they get a lot of flack.
They do.
You know, we're just never happy, are we? We're going to complain about the roads.
Oh, yeah.
But while the
Yeah.
roads are being fixed, we're going to complain about the roads being fixed and how inconvenient that is, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They have to have thick skin. I can imagine being out there in all the weather conditions and doing what they do while dodging cars.
Right. And snow removal and all that, too.
Yes,
and
on
all
top
the
of
weather. And,
So shout out to them.
absolutely.
Thank you.
They do help me a lot with a lot of
Yes.
my, a lot of stuff I review. Like we'll look at traffic counts. We'll look at how many cars go past an area at a time. And they've got radar devices they can
I
put
see
out
little
for me.
cameras here and there. Is that what they're doing, counting cars, or are they speed traps?
No. I don't think we have any speed traps.
Gotcha.
But sometimes the cameras, like if you see the cameras at an intersection,
Mm-hmm.
some of those cameras are actually readers to determine whether there's a vehicle sitting there or not. So if the light is green for the main line and you pull up to it and you have a red light, that little camera can pick you up and determine if you're there or not. And then it'll go through a different cycle for the light to change it where you can go green.
Interesting.
And so a lot of those little cameras, a lot of people think that they're, like a
I
speed
like
trap
that
or a
because
spying.
late at night, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. I come to a red light and I'm sitting there, and there's nobody around. But I'm such a rule follower, I just sit there. I just do because I can't get away with anything, and I guarantee you, some lights are going to get me. Some popo lights somewhere are going to come out of the darkness just because I, inched a little bit.
Yeah, and two, there's also another means of detecting, and that's you'll see there's little markings on there, like a little indentations and things like that on the ground, or like a little black stripe that goes around in a rectangle.
Right.
Those are magnetic sensors that'll pick up your car. So they'll either use
Really?
cameras or magnetic sensors.
Interesting.
And then some lights are set on continuous cycle, like they'll go main line and inside and then main line side. So if you just have to wait it out.
There's so much involved with it. So this is what I've always heard. So let's just set the record straight now.
Okay.
Do you all time the lights at
Yeah.
all between each other?
Well, with me being the county engineer, I
Mm-hmm.
really don't have too much of involvement with the lights here.
Gotcha.
But back in the city of Bowling Green, I was the stormwater and traffic engineer for the city of Bowling Green for
Oh, wow.
17 years.
So they are timed to
Yeah.
try and make it from one green light to the next green light?
Well, that's the goal for a lot of areas, and that's
Yeah.
called a corridor
Oh,
analysis.
corridor analysis.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so if we go in there, we try to get it to where if you're going to speed limit, which
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people don't, and so if you're going to speed limit, you should be able to make every light on a green cycle. And then
Right.
sometimes that doesn't work right because they'll have some other side demands, like higher traffic will come in from the sides, and we'll help them get
Sure.
out too. So then the lights might
complicated.
change. It is.
That's why we have engineers
That's
who go
right.
to school for these things. Awesome. I know you have a lot of projects here in Hardin County going on. You want to highlight some of those for us?
I don't even know where to begin. We work
Wow.
a lot with planning and zoning on a
Okay.
lot of stuff. Like, and one of the things I think is really cool is the Glendale rural village
Okay.
concepts and stuff. And that's where they're working out a lot of different, kind of just trying to help Glendale grow in a nice way where it becomes like a really, it's already a great community.
It is.
But
It always has been. They've been greatly impacted.
Yeah, they
with
have.
everything that's going on.
And that's why we want to try to keep as much as that area as we can. And we're working with a lot of people there. And Adam with Planning and Zoning is doing a phenomenal job.
Planning and
his staff.
zoning as far as bringing in other businesses or just working on the traffic flow?
Well, they work on what the land use is, like
Okay.
designate land use to make sure we're being responsible for what kind of things are going in where and things like that.
Right.
And-
Commercial property, those types of
Right.
things.
Yeah, and so they're trying to do like an entire planning for the entire area there to kind of pull in a lot of different stuff. And then
That's
we've
a
got
huge
that.
endeavor.
It is. And then right next to our building, I don't know if anybody's seen it or not, but we've got a lot of dirt work going right next to our building.
And
there
where's your
at-
building located?
It's over on 150 North Provident.
Okay.
And,
Is that
it's-
here in E-Town?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
actually
okay.
in the E-Town area, and it's right off Patrick Way. I say Patrick Way, but it's Patriot Way.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
I'm still learning a lot of the roadways
Sure.
here,
Yeah,
too.
you're kind of new, but we're glad to have you.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you.
So
And,
what are y'all putting in there? What are they moving the dirt for? We love to know these things. So we're always like, what's happening? Because Crumble already opened, so what's next? You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they're actually just preparing the land for any kind of future growth and stuff like that
Yeah.
for that area.
There's a lot going on.
There is.
Yeah.
There really is. And then, too, we look at stormwater analysis.
Mm-hmm.
We want to try to make sure everything's responsible in that area. And
So
two-
what does stormwater, for us laymen, what does stormwater, what does that entail?
Yeah, for example, if you see a grassy meadow,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to go out there and develop it, and so you want to put a gas station, stuff like that. Well, the water that goes onto the ground in a grassy area is going to percolate down through. So a lot of your water that hits that area from a rain event is just going to percolate down through. But when you put asphalt on it, what does it do? It just runs right off the asphalt and it's
Right.
going somewhere.
Will it cause cracks or anything in the asphalt and damage it?
Um,
Or it just goes underneath it?
No, a lot of it should just go over top of it,
Mm-hmm.
but asphalt does have some percolation capability, but we always just assume it's completely 100% what we call impervious.
Mm-hmm.
And that means the water can't get into it and it's got to go somewhere. And so the increase between what it used to be and what we do now, we call pre and post. And then when that water goes off the site, we want to try to capture that to hold back the additional water that the site would have caused. And then that way we've got like a pipe, if you see like little ponds, we call them basins, detention basins, stuff like that. If you see that and you see water in it and you see an exit pipe, we're trying to hold back that additional water on that site so
Interesting.
that when it goes downstream, it's not all kind of going down there and flooding areas and
Right.
stuff.
I know you encompass all of Hardin County, but I spend most of my time here in Elizabethtown.
Yeah.
I've seen when we've had a substantial amount of rain, there are certain areas here that went from a field to a pond.
Right.
Is that kind of what you all fight and analyze?
Yeah, that's part of the picture. We'll look at areas that are problematic, like, if a road is flooding over and stuff, we'll try to figure out different ways to help mitigate that problem with the flooding. Like figure out different ways to capture the water, redirect the water, things like that. And then look upstream to see if anything else was added that wasn't accounted for, and then they'll try to look at that as well.
What a huge responsibility.
Yeah, and it's the whole county. It's funny, I talk to
Yeah.
family and they're like, seriously, Mark, you know how big that county is?
Truly, we are, back in the day, the last time I looked, we were like the third most populated county in Kentucky. So, wow.
Yeah, it's huge. And then, too, the cities and the incorporated areas within the county, every single one of them I met with have just been fantastic. And the other part of the reason I took the job is because I'm really enthusiastic about what we're going to do with things and try to help, because we're going to grow. with all these things
Yes.
coming in, we're going to grow, and
We
we just
are.
want to be responsible
And
with
ready.
that growth.
The pre and the
yeah.
post.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because everyone, I'm sure everyone watching or listening knows we are building everywhere, apartments especially. So do they have you all come in when they are breaking ground to build another new apartment complex? Do you all in your team go out and analyze all of that first?
Well, no, actually, what's nice is you'll have an engineer, like the people developing that area,
Okay.
will go in with their engineering staff, and they'll actually lay out the engineering, like the contours and where they're going to put the basin and a lot of the things like that. And then planning and zoning will look at it from an aspect of, what's the site distance, what's the driveway approaches, things like that. And then we'll review the engineering side of the stuff, like where's your
So
calculations.
you make sure they got it right.
Well, we
No
try.
pressure.
We just review.
Right. No, I mean, if there's a problem later,
Yeah.
and I'm sure that doesn't happen very often, but I'm sure it does happen.
And it can. You've got multiple people trying to do a really complex thing, like
Sure.
trying to fit something that's three-dimensional into another three-dimensional area, and you're changing that 3 dimensions. And so you're trying to make sure everything fits just right.
Gotcha.
And so there's a chance something might get missed along the way. But a lot of the site engineers will really do a great job on it, and then we just kind of review it. And if we see stuff, we'll try to call it out to them.
Wonderful.
And then we have specific regulations, too, about stormwater requirements for what you have to design for.
And
how
who
do you have
sets
to
those
do it.
regulations? Is that state or is that federal?
Well, we've got county regulations,
Okay.
and some of that's based off of national guidelines
Right.
and stuff like that. But with our local, we'll look at we're actually looking at updating some of our stormwater regulations now to kind of address some of the newer things that people are running into and the things that people like to do in like more of an industrialized type of area and stuff. So
We have a lot of that, and
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll have more.
oh, we will.
Yeah.
And we're possibly looking at some traffic aspects and stuff, traffic regulations and stuff to try to help
As far as
address
changing
growth.
them?
Right.
And what would that entail? I know we've got our roundabouts, which some people have issues with. I personally don't care. I see them as first world problems. Who cares? It's a roundabout. Go around it. It's not a big deal. And the J turns, which really help
They do.
with the flow of traffic. And now, I don't always want to turn right when I want to go left, but I trust the people who go to school for these things to know what they're doing. So you just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of the stuff I liked about E-Town when I drive around is it's got a lot of really great traffic flow dynamics and
Yeah.
stuff. And
And
I
it's
hear
taking
people,
time.
It does.
It's
it
taking
does.
time.
And I've heard people talk about the J's and that they don't like them and stuff.
Right.
But the alternative is to have like what we call twiddles, which is two-way turn lanes.
Oh.
And so you'll have like 2 lanes and then you'll have a middle lane.
Right.
And that's where you put all your turn movements. Well, the problem is you can have 2 people coming from 2 different directions wanting to go to the same
kind of
spot.
like coming from Walmart in E-Town to the mall. Is that the kind of situation it is?
I don't know
They
about
have 1 lane going this way, 2 lanes going that way, and then, well, maybe this middle lane can go straight or go left. I don't know.
Yeah.
You're new. I mean, there's a lot. I'm like very specific on this. So, yeah.
Yeah, and part of that thing too is with the J turns, you kind of reduce a lot of that stopping traffic, and so every time somebody slows down to make a left or to make a right or whatever, each time other vehicles have to interact with that.
Right.
And so if you can get the J turns, they can kind of get them out of the flow area, and it lets it flow better.
Yeah.
And as far as roundabouts, those tend to be a lot more efficient than lights,
Truly.
signals.
Truly. And because if I'm going to get hit, I would much rather get hit at 5 miles an hour going in a roundabout than somebody flying down the road going 20 over the speed limit.
Oh yeah, and then two, you have a lot less likelihood of being hit in the side, and the T
Which is the most
interaction.
dangerous, I'm sure,
It is.
for the occupants of the vehicle.
It is, and then two, with the roundabout, like you said, it's much slower. So if you do, it's a lot less of a.
And people are still learning.
They
They're
are.
learning how to do a roundabout because, and we've had one for ages around the courthouse here in E-Town specifically for ages, and people know that one,
Right.
but people still will stop because they're used to a 4-way stop being there, whatever, where muscle memory,
Yep.
and will stop, and I I try to be kind, but I'm not going to lie. I get a little frustrated. I'm like, God, what are you doing? You don't stop. There's nobody. But change is hard.
It is. And I remember the first we actually had another roundabout in Bowling Green, a great big one up in the industrial park that a lot of people didn't know about because it was way out in the middle of nowhere.
Not a lot of people used it.
Yeah, and there was not a lot of traffic up in that area. So our first big one where a lot of traffic was KYTC had brought it in, District 3. And they've reached out to me and asked me about it. I'm like, I love the idea.
Yeah.
But 90% of that is education, like you're talking about. Let people know how to do this and let them know.
Trust the people that know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have enough to worry about. I'm not going to worry about it.
Right.
I'm just gonna use the J turn. I'm just gonna go around the roundabout. It'll be fine.
Right.
Yeah. There are people who know these things.
And there is, and then too, there's specific designs to those things too.
And they're from a state level, correct?
Well,
local folks didn't make those decisions.
Right, and that's another thing I want to bring in is in the short time I've been here, I've been working with KYTC on a lot of the stuff, and they'll present us stuff, and we'll talk it through, and those guys have been fantastic.
Good.
Absolutely fantastic.
Good. Yeah, I know that local government got a lot of backlash for changes.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a situation like a nonprofit or something. It's end of the year, we got to spend this money, or next year we're not going to get as much money. It wasn't that. They're not trying to just spend money. So let's stick something over here. That's not how it works, right?
Right. We want to look at the cost-effective return. You don't want to do something just because it seemed like a great idea at the time. Right. And so we'll do a lot of studies.
We're just trying to spend money. That's what we're doing now.
Right. No.
Doubtful.
No, we're not.
Yeah. So you are pretty new to Hardin County. Obviously, you have great experience. What have you found so far to be your greatest challenge here in Hardin County?
I think from a personal standpoint, I'm used to City of Bowling Green, and I'm used to what we do there.
Right.
And, we're not there yet.
Yeah, so how do we do things differently?
Really just kind of the ordinances and stuff are really not set up for that type of stuff later on.
Sure.
But to be honest, they've been doing fantastic stuff here.
Right.
And that's another reason I took the job, because I read a lot of their stuff beforehand.
Sure.
And I really liked the direction we're heading. I'm trying to think of challenges, though.
And I'm not trying to get you in trouble.
Oh, no. It's just
by any stretch. Because I do know I chose Hardin County as my home 27 years ago. And I've never regretted it once. I'm super proud of everything that we have here in Hardin County, Kentucky. And we are known for being a very teamwork-oriented community, and I'm very proud of that. So I'm sure if you do come up against a challenge, you definitely have 5 people saying, let's fix it.
Well, and that's the other thing, too, with the team orientation is that with all the different agencies working together on stuff, it really helps. And 2, it's, like NASA showed a long time ago, teams generally work a lot better than individuals because somebody's going to see something somebody doesn't else see.
Well, and there's accountability right there.
Right.
And that's a big deal. When you have an individual, they may go rogue on you.
Right.
But, if you have a team, there's definitely accountability. So what's your biggest project right now? Would you say it's the wastewater?
I don't really deal too much with wastewater stuff. But
did I say it wrong?
No, there's stormwater.
Stormwater, sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I worked at the Division of Water, and I was there for almost 5 years. And my staff, I had 7 people reporting to me, and they would do what we call the NOIs, which is notice of intent. So if you're going to go and do a disturbance greater than an acre, you have to let them know, and you'll send a notification in there, and then they'll record it as to where it's at, and that lets us know out and about where all the construction is, because we're trying to protect the streams, and so we want to know where potential sedimentation is and contaminants, stuff like that. And then we had MS4, which is also kind of hand-in-hand with that, because we look at silt fences. Like when you drive by a construction site and you see that black fence, that's to try to help keep mud out of the streams and off of other roadways and waterways and stuff like that.
We're learning so much. I'm very excited about the magnetic triangle at the lights, and that's very interesting too. That's good information. We as laymen on the outside looking in take all of this for granted.
And that's, when I talk to friends and family and stuff, that's kind of what they're seeing too. And I went out with somebody and we were doing what we call ball bank studies, and that's where you go through the curve, and you're trying to see what kind of warning speed you should have there, like opposed to advisory speed.
Right.
And so they'd never seen that before, which was really cool to be able to experience that together and kind of show them, hey, this is what we do, and this is why we do it, and this is where all the numbers come from. But with the divisional wastewater treatment plants, I was overall the permit writers for the entire state, and so it's related back to having a familiarity. And so we meet with Hardin County Hardin County number 2. We haven't met with Hardin County number 1 yet, but when they're doing their stuff, we also want to get involved with that too, because there's limits on how much you can expand. There's limits on whether it's sewerable or whether you have septic tanks. And that's the other thing I'm getting used to is septic systems.
Okay. They don't have those in Bowling Green?
Some of the older areas might, but almost everything has gone to sanitary.
Is that something that Hardin County is looking at over, I'm sure it would take a length of time, but to eliminate those?
I don't think there's really a push for that because they're successful where they are.
Gotcha.
And the health department's developed some really good guidelines on trying to install those properly.
So there are new builds that are getting those septic tanks even now?
Yeah, like residential areas, you wouldn't want that for industrial areas.
Sure.
And that's part of the problem too, is when the industrial areas are expanding out, they want to try to tap into that. And it's another struggle for the wastewater treatment agencies to try to keep up with that demand. So
is that just more financially sound for them if they can tap into what's already existing?
I'd have to let them speak to that.
Fair enough.
Because it's, just from my county side, I'm more just a cooperative team member with those folks. They've got a lot of challenges out there.
So it sounds like none of these organizations, entities, nobody stands alone. Every single project takes a lot of arms.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. And so, for example, if you want a new Kroger, people will look at that, look at traffic, they'll look at what kind of demands that's going to have, whether it can be serviced or not. There's just a whole lot of parts that all go into these things. And so for a lot of folks, they just see a new building and a new parking lot.
And that's all we care about.
That. Right.
That's all as the public, that's all we care about. And are my taxes going to go up because of this or this or that?
Right.
Honestly.
Right.
You mentioned Kroger. I know we're on tap for new Publix, correct?
That's what I hear. That's inside of
so it
E-Town.
It hasn't hit your desk yet as far as how you would. Because I really see where they've talked about it going in the effect of traffic through there, and it's going to be on what's been farmland for so long. So it'll be interesting to see how that development works.
Yeah, the thing too is with me being a county engineer, I'm limited. Like E-Town has their own staffing, and so they do a lot of their own internal stuff.
Gotcha.
And I look forward to working with E-Town on a lot of different projects.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of limited as to there are certain areas that they have their own folks that do things.
So you are county. So do each of the cities have their own engineers as well?
If they're large enough, and I'm still learning who is doing what in different areas and stuff. And,
so that y'all can, sort of work together and not step on toes and all of those things.
Yeah.
That's probably fun coming into a new area. Bless your heart. Yeah. So I'm sure E-Town has one. What about Radcliffe? Do they have any city? They're substantially smaller, but awesome.
Yeah, and I'm still learning all who has what.
Well, it sounds like E-Town's probably kept you busy. And Glendale.
Yeah, because what they're working on internally. But with our areas, we just kind of go out into the county. And so that's probably the hardest thing for me to get used to, because I was used to the city of Bowling Green, and everything was bounded by that.
Sure. So we're more rural, and you're getting used to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because E-Town's pretty spread out.
It
and
is.
Radcliffe is too. They're years ago they did not meet, but now they do because everyone's growing.
Yeah, and that was the other fascinating thing, is to look at maps and look at incorporated areas.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to make sure we get out to the extremes, like the far west part of the county. And
they need love too.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot. So primarily you deal with roadways and water? Would that be a fair
Yeah,
assessment?
I think that's the best way to kind of sum it
And
up.
how they interact with each other?
Yeah, and we also look at safety concerns for traffic, things like that. Like
Right.
we'll go back to roadways and other areas, and if we get any complaints or requests, we'll take a look at that too. Like sometimes we'll get speeding complaints.
Right.
and
That
we'll
was my
study
next
that.
question. So is that something you assess is the speed?
Yeah, and because that goes back to our road crew, they do radar studies, and then I can look at that data that they provide, and I can kind of figure out, like you have an average speed, which kind of tells you a little bit, and then you've got a max speed, which will definitely tell you how.
Which people are going to add 5 to 10 to anyway. Do you take that into consideration? Is that something you can tell me?
Oh,
Is this like, okay, 55, 100%, or do you kind of know, not that you're giving anyone permission, but do you kind of put a little wobble in there when you make those decisions, knowing that people are going to say, oh, I could add 5 to it?
well, what we do is we actually try to determine, we go by the speed limit sign, or we'll do what's called an 85th percentile, and that's where you go in, and the radar studies will tell us what
What people are
85%
doing.
of the people, yeah, because you'll have some that they're just not going to care.
Right.
They don't care about the
Truly.
speed limit. They don't care about anything, and we can look at that readout and kind of tell
Interesting.
areas that have more of a problem than other areas.
Right,
And,
yeah.
we used to in the city of Bowling Green. I would pull the window of speed, and I would send that over to the police department.
Smart.
And it kind of helps them figure out when, because you can sit out there all day
Yeah.
and not know when they're there.
Well,
but
people's lives are at risk.
they are.
And Mark, I'm afraid we're out of time, but I do want to
Oh,
go out.
sorry.
No, it's fascinating because I knew nothing and now I know stuff.
Oh, good.
But I really want to go out and just reiterating to people, watch out for our construction guys. Watch out for our road crew guys. We had a terrible situation just recently, and I can't even put into words how important it is. These guys are, and ladies, I mean, generally, are in a very dangerous position trying to do their job. I can't imagine trying to do my job while I'm dodging cars.
Yeah, and another big problem is texting.
Texting, yes.
When-
Don't do it.
When people go
Yes.
through a construction zone and they're texting or doing something they feel is really far more important than a life.
And it
to be
isn't.
honest.
There's nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing more important than a life. Mark,
Right.
thank you so much, and welcome
Oh,
to
you're
Hardin
welcome.
County.
Well, thanks.
We're so glad to have you. I'm glad you're happy here. And as you know, we're growing all the time. If we have something that you'd like, or if we don't have it, we probably will.
Well, I love
Just
the
give it
whole
time.
area. It's
Good.
awesome.
Good. It is the best place to live. I've lived all over the world, and this is home. Thank you, Mark. I
Oh, you're
appreciate your
welcome.
time.
Thanks.
All right, folks, that's it. Melanie Parker, thank you for watching Issues and Insights, and we'll see you next week.